You wake up and within 60 seconds it starts. Not the phone, not the notifications. Something deeper. A heaviness in your chest that has no name. A sense that something has gone wrong, is going wrong, will go wrong. You lie there and you feel it, this low-grade dread that follows you from bed to shower to car to desk to bed again. And you think the problem is that life is hard. You think the worst thing that can happen to you is suffering. But here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The worst thing is not suffering. The worst thing is suffering without meaning. Suffering with a purpose transforms you. Suffering without a purpose destroys you. And most of the suffering in your life right now is the second kind. Not because life is cruel, but because you have not yet decided what your pain is for. Here is the costly mistake most people make. They wait for meaning to arrive. They wait for life to explain itself. They sit in the wreckage of a collapsed relationship, a lost job, a diagnosis, a death, and they ask, why is this happening to me? And when no answer comes, they conclude that there is no answer. That life is random. That pain is pointless. That they are simply unlucky. And so they suffer. They suffer and they deteriorate. Not because the event was unbearable, but because they assigned it no significance beyond injury. Meaning is not something you find. Meaning is something you forge. That is the thesis of everything I am about to tell you. Meaning is not discovered lying in a field waiting for you to stumble across it. Meaning is built through the choice of your attitude. It is the act of looking at what has broken you and deciding what it will make of you. And that decision, that single act of will, is the difference between those who are crushed by life and those who are carved by it. The Stoics understood this. Not as a theory. Not as something they read in a book and found interesting. They understood it because they lived it. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire through plague, war, betrayal, and the deaths of his children. Epictetus was born a slave, was crippled, was exiled. Seneca lost everything to political vengeance and was forced to take his own life. These were not men who theorized about adversity from comfortable chairs. They were men who were dragged through the mud and who came back with a framework for how to stand. And at the center of that framework is one idea, repeated in a dozen different ways across 1,000 years. You cannot always choose what happens to you. But you can always choose what it means. Let me walk you through 5 lessons that emerge when you take this idea seriously. Not as abstractions. As practices. As things you do when the ground disappears beneath your feet. Lesson 1. Those who have a why can bear almost any how. This is not a motivational poster. This is a survival mechanism. It was observed in the most extreme conditions humans have ever endured. In places where people were stripped of their names, their clothes, their families, their futures. Where every external marker of identity was removed. And in those conditions, the people who survived were not the strongest. Not the youngest. Not the most physically fit. The people who survived were the ones who carried a purpose inside them that no guard could confiscate. Some carried the purpose of seeing a loved one again. Some carried the purpose of finishing a piece of work. Some carried the purpose of simply not letting their captors see them break. The specific why varied. But the principle did not. When you have a reason to endure, your body finds resources it did not know it had. When you do not, your body begins to shut down even when there is no physical reason for it. Now, you are probably not in a concentration camp. But you are in something. Maybe it is a job that drains you. Maybe it is a marriage that has gone cold. Maybe it is a period of your life where nothing is technically wrong but nothing feels right either. You wake up tired. You go through the motions. You feel a vague emptiness that you try to fill with distraction. And here is what nobody tells you about that emptiness. It is not a symptom of something missing from your life. It is a symptom of something missing from your orientation toward your life. You have events. You have circumstances. What you do not have is a why that holds them together. So the first practice is this. Stop asking what you want from life. Start asking what life is asking of you. This is a reversal that changes everything. Most people approach meaning as consumers. What can life give me? What will make me feel fulfilled? What experience, what achievement, what relationship will finally make me feel whole? But meaning is not something you receive. It is something you are called to. The question is not what do I want? The question is what does this moment demand of me? What is the task right in front of me that I am avoiding because it is hard or boring or painful? That task is your why. Not some grand purpose written in the stars. The thing on your desk. The conversation you have been putting off. The decision you keep deferring. Meaning begins there, in the willingness to answer the call that is already present. And when you do this, something shifts. The same job becomes a different job. The same routine becomes a different routine. Not because anything external changed. Because you stopped asking life to entertain you and started asking what you owe to this moment. That is the first lesson. Find your why, and the how becomes bearable. Not easy. Not pleasant. But bearable. And bearable is enough. Bearable is what gets you through. Lesson 2. You do not control the event. You control the meaning. This is the core of Stoic philosophy, and it is the core of everything I am telling you. Epictetus said it plainly. Some things are up to us. Some things are not. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. These are up to us. Our bodies, our possessions, our reputation, our position. These are not up to us. And the reason most people suffer unnecessarily is that they spend their lives trying to control what is not up to them while neglecting what is. You cannot control whether you get sick. You cannot control whether someone you love leaves. You cannot control the economy, the weather, the opinions of others, the passage of time. You cannot control any of it. And the energy you spend trying to control the uncontrollable is energy stolen from the one thing you actually command. Your response. Your interpretation. The meaning you assign. Here is what this looks like in practice. Something bad happens to you. Let us say you lose your job. The event is neutral. It is a fact. You no longer work at that company. But within seconds of the event, your mind begins generating meaning. This is a disaster. I am a failure. I will never recover. Everyone will think less of me. My life is over. And here is the critical point. None of those interpretations are the event. They are stories you are telling yourself about the event. And you are treating them as if they are facts. The Stoic practice is to insert a gap between the event and the meaning. To notice that the meaning is not given. It is chosen. You lost your job. That is what happened. What it means is up to you. It could mean you are a failure. Or it could mean you are being redirected. It could mean your life is over. Or it could mean a chapter is ending and you now have the opportunity to build something more aligned with who you actually are. Both interpretations are available to you. Neither one is more true than the other in any objective sense. But one will destroy you and one will mobilize you. And you get to choose. Most people never make this choice consciously. They let the default meaning run. And the default meaning, the one your fear generates automatically, is almost always the most destructive one available. Fear says this is catastrophic. Fear says you are not enough. Fear says this is the beginning of the end. And because no one ever taught you to question that voice, you accept its interpretation as reality. But you are not required to accept it. You can pause. You can look at the event and say, this happened. Now what? Not why me. Now what? That is the Stoic move. That is the moment where you reclaim your freedom. Because the last freedom that cannot be taken from you is the freedom to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. Everything else can be stripped away. Your money, your status, your health, your relationships. But the stance you take toward what happens to you, that is yours. And most people give it away without a fight. So the second practice is this. When something painful happens, before you react, before you spiral, before you tell yourself the story, stop. Ask yourself one question. What does this moment ask of me? Not why is this happening? What does this ask of me? And then answer it. Maybe it asks for patience. Maybe it asks for courage. Maybe it asks for stillness. Maybe it asks for action. But the answer will come from a place of meaning, not from a place of panic. And that makes all the difference. Lesson 3. Premeditate the difficulty. Do not be surprised by it. Marcus Aurelius had a morning practice. And it was not gratitude journaling. It was not positive affirmations. It was something most people today would find depressing. Every morning, he would deliberately imagine the worst things that could happen that day. He would picture the people around him being difficult, dishonest, rude. He would picture meetings going wrong, plans falling apart, delays and frustrations and failures. And he would sit with those images. Not to make himself anxious. To make himself ready. Most people do the opposite. They wake up and they hope for the best. They tell themselves today will be a good day. They set positive intentions. And then when something goes wrong, they are shocked. Genuinely shocked. As if difficulty were an anomaly rather than the basic condition of existence. And that shock is what costs them. Not the event itself. The surprise. The gap between what they expected and what happened. That gap is where all the unnecessary suffering lives. Marcus understood something profound about human psychology. Surprise is a form of vulnerability. When you are surprised by difficulty, you react. You are reactive. You are at the mercy of the event. But when you have already considered the possibility, when you have already walked through it in your mind, the event arrives and you recognize it. You expected this. Maybe not this exact form, but something like it. And because you expected it, you are not knocked off balance. You are already standing in the right position. You are already braced, not with tension, but with acceptance. This is what I call confidence architecture. You are building a structure inside yourself that can withstand what is coming. Not by pretending it will not come. By acknowledging that it will. By saying to yourself, today I will encounter difficulty. Today someone will frustrate me. Today something will not go according to plan. And that is not a problem. That is just what it means to be alive. Now, there is a deeper layer to this practice that most people miss. When you premeditate difficulty, you are not just preparing for the event. You are rehearsing the meaning. You are deciding in advance what the difficulty will mean to you. So when Marcus pictured the rude, dishonest people he would encounter, he was not just bracing for annoyance. He was deciding in advance that their behavior would not determine his. He was pre-choosing his response. He was saying, "This person will be difficult, and I will not be disturbed. This plan will fail, and I will not be shaken. Not because I am superhuman. Because I have already lived through this in my mind, and I have already chosen my stance." That is what premeditation gives you. Not anxiety. Readiness. Not pessimism. Composure. And composure under pressure is not something you are born with. It is something you build by walking through the fire in your imagination before you walk through it in reality. So the third practice is this. Each morning, spend 2 minutes imagining what could go wrong today. Not catastrophizing. Not spiraling. Just calmly, deliberately considering the real possibilities. The difficult conversation. The delayed project. The unexpected expense. The person who disappoints you. And for each one, decide in advance what it will mean. Not a disaster. Not a setback. A normal part of the day. An opportunity to practice what you have been learning. A test of who you are becoming. Do this every day, and watch what happens to your reactivity. Watch how much less often you are knocked off center. Watch how much more often you meet difficulty with a calm that surprises even yourself. Lesson 4. Meaning is forged through the choice of your attitude, not discovered in the absence of pain. Here is the truth nobody tells you about meaning. It is not waiting for you on the other side of your pain. You do not suffer through something and then arrive at a clearing where meaning is sitting on a stump, waiting to hand you an explanation. That is not how it works. That is the fantasy. The reality is that meaning is not found after suffering. Meaning is created during suffering. It is the act of suffering well. It is the stance you take while the pain is still happening. This is the hardest lesson, and it is the most important one. Because it means you cannot wait. You cannot say, "I will find meaning once this is over. Once I have healed. Once I have processed. Once I am in a better place." No. The meaning is in how you bear it right now. In this moment. While it still hurts. While you still do not understand why. The meaning is not an explanation that comes later. It is a decision you make now. Think about what it means to suffer with dignity. Dignity is not the absence of pain. Dignity is the refusal to let pain turn you into something you are not. It is the decision to remain honest when dishonesty would be easier. To remain kind when cruelty would be understandable. To remain committed to something larger than your own comfort when comfort is all you crave. That decision, made in the middle of pain, is where meaning is forged. Not later. Now. There is a framework here that I want you to internalize. There are 3 paths to meaning, and only one of them requires suffering. The first path is creation. What you give to the world. Your work. Your art. Your service. The thing you build or contribute that would not exist without you. The second path is experience. What you receive from the world. Love. Beauty. Nature. Connection. The moments when you are so present that the emptiness disappears and you are simply here, fully alive. These 2 paths are available to you every day, and you should walk them constantly. But the third path. The third path is the one that matters when everything falls apart. The third path is attitude. The stand you take towards suffering that you cannot change. And here is the remarkable thing. The third path, the path of attitude, represents the highest achievement of meaning. Higher than creation. Higher than experience. Because it is the hardest. Because it asks the most of you. Because it requires you to find purpose not in what you do or what you feel, but in who you choose to be when everything has been taken away. So the fourth practice is this. When you are in pain that you cannot remove, do not ask when it will end. Ask what it is forging in you. Ask who it is asking you to become. Not because the pain is good. Pain is not good. But because your response to it can be. You can let it hollow you out, or you can let it carve depth into you. Those are different processes that look similar from the outside. Both involve removal. Both involve loss. But one leaves you empty and the other leaves you with space. Space for wisdom. Space for compassion. Space for a kind of strength that can only be built by carrying something heavy. You do not get to choose whether you suffer. You do get to choose whether your suffering means something. And that choice is not made after the pain. It is made inside the pain. It is made right now. Lesson 5. Assign purpose to your pain. Do not wait for pain to reveal purpose. This is the synthesis of everything I have been saying, and it is the most practical, the most actionable, and the most difficult. Most people approach pain as a question. Why is this happening? What is the universe trying to tell me? What lesson am I supposed to learn? And they wait. They wait for the answer to arrive, for the meaning to reveal itself, for the pain to make sense. And sometimes it does. Sometimes, years later, you look back and you see why something had to happen. But often it does not. Often the pain never makes sense. Often there is no silver lining, no hidden lesson, no cosmic purpose that explains why you had to lose what you lost. And if you are waiting for that explanation, you will wait forever. You will sit in the wreckage, waiting for it to mean something, while the wreckage becomes your home. The Stoic approach is different. The Stoic approach is active, not passive. You do not wait for pain to reveal its purpose. You assign purpose to your pain. You look at what has happened and you say, I will use this. I will use this loss to become more present with what I still have. I will use this failure to become more humble, more honest, more disciplined. I will use this betrayal to become more discerning without becoming bitter. I will use this illness to deepen my appreciation for the days I am given. You are not pretending the pain is good. You are refusing to let it be pointless. This is not delusion. This is agency. This is the most powerful thing a human being can do. To look at senseless suffering and impose sense on it. Not by lying to yourself. Not by pretending it does not hurt. But by deciding that the hurt will serve something. That it will not be wasted. That you will extract from it everything it has to teach you, and you will use that knowledge to build a life that is deeper and more grounded than the one you had before. Because here is what happens when you do not do this. When you do not assign purpose to your pain, the pain assigns its own purpose. And the purpose it assigns is destruction. Pain without assigned purpose turns to bitterness. It turns to resentment. It turns to the slow, quiet corrosion of your character. You become harder in the wrong ways. Colder. More cynical. More closed. You start to believe that life is against you, that people cannot be trusted, that nothing matters. And that belief, once it takes root, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You create the meaninglessness you feared. But when you assign purpose to your pain, something entirely different happens. The pain still hurts. It still costs you. You still grieve, still rage, still feel the full weight of what was lost. But underneath all of that, there is a current moving in a direction. There is a trajectory. You are being shaped, not just broken. You are being carved, not just cut. And the difference between being carved and being cut is not the tool. The tool is the same. The difference is the intention of the hand that holds it. When you assign purpose to your pain, you become that hand. You are the one holding the chisel. Life provides the hammer, but you decide what shape emerges. So the fifth practice is this. When pain arrives, do not ask why. Ask what for. What is this for? What will I use this for? And then answer the question. Not once. Every day. Every morning when you wake up and the pain is still there, ask again. What is this for today? What does today's portion of this pain ask of me? And answer it with action. Not with theory. With action. Be patient today. Be courageous today. Be honest today. Be kind today. Let the pain be the fuel for the virtue you practice today. And over time, over months and years, you will look back and realize something extraordinary. The pain did not destroy you. It built you. Not because it was meant to. Because you decided it would. Now let me bring all of this together, because the threads are not separate. They are one thread woven through 5 turns. You wake up and the heaviness is there. The low-grade dread. The sense that something is wrong. And the old response, the response you have been running on your whole life, is to ask why. Why does this feel bad? Why is life like this? Why can I not just be happy? And the asking goes nowhere. It circles. It spirals. It consumes energy and produces nothing. The new response, the Stoic response, the response that changes everything, is to stop asking why and start asking what. What does this moment ask of me? What meaning am I assigning to this? What purpose will I forge from this? What stance will I take? What kind of person will I be in the face of this? These are not comforting questions. They are not designed to make you feel better in the moment. They are designed to make you better in the moment. To shift you from passive recipient of your circumstances to active author of your response. And that shift, that single shift, is the difference between a life that happens to you and a life that you happen to. Meaning is not something you find. Meaning is something you forge. I said that at the beginning, and I am saying it again now, because it is the one thing I want you to carry with you. Not as a quote. Not as a nice idea. As a practice. As something you do, daily, hourly, in every moment that threatens to pull you under. You forge meaning. You take the raw material of your life, the pain and the joy and the monotony and the loss, and you work it. You shape it. You decide what it becomes. Not because you are powerful enough to control events. Because you are powerful enough to control what events become in you. The Stoics did not promise that life would be easy. They promised that you could be equal to it. They did not promise that pain would end. They promised that pain could be carried with dignity. They did not promise that you would understand why things happen. They promised that understanding why was not necessary. What was necessary was deciding what to do with what happened. And that is the final lesson. The one that contains all the others. You are not what happens to you. You are what you choose to become in response to what happens to you. That choice is always available. In the worst moments of your life, in the moments when everything has fallen apart and you cannot see any reason to keep going, that choice is still there. Quiet. Patient. Waiting for you to make it. So make it. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when the pain has eased and the circumstances have improved. Now. In this moment. With whatever you are carrying. Decide what it is for. Decide who it is making you. Decide that your suffering will not be wasted. Decide that your life will not be a series of things that happened to you but a story about what you chose to do with what happened. That is meaning. Not a feeling. Not an experience. A decision. Made again and again and again, in every moment that asks you to give up. A decision to forge purpose from pain. To build character from loss. To extract wisdom from confusion. To remain, even in the darkest passages, the author of your own response. Most people will never do this. Most people will spend their lives waiting for meaning to arrive, waiting for pain to explain itself, waiting for life to make sense. And they will die waiting. You do not have to be one of them. You have everything you need right now. Not because your circumstances are good. Because your circumstances are not what you need. What you need is the willingness to stand in the middle of the wreckage and say, "This happened, and I will decide what it means." That is your freedom. The last freedom. The one that cannot be taken. Use it. Stay forged.